So what was life like for someone with managing, Azure Storage before Storage Discovery? And what's life like now that, let's say, you've acquired Storage Discovery?
There's a metric of showing you how many transactions a storage account has. But once you scale that up to 400,000 storage accounts, right? How are you going to find out where your hotspots are? How do you find out if these storage accounts are in the right tier? How do you find out if you need to take action across your fleet? And you can basically deploy what we call a storage discovery workspace. You can find Storage Discovery in the Azure Marketplace. So just search for Storage Discovery. When you log into the Azure portal, just search for Storage Discovery, and you'll find it there.
All right, everyone, welcome back to another Azure Storage Talk. I am your host, Demetrius, and I have a special guest for us today, Fabian Uhse, who is a principal product manager as well. So, Fabian, welcome on.
Thank you so much for having me.
And we are going to dive into a very important topic around discovering your data estate within Azure. And so, Fabian, let's start off by just giving the audience a overview around the problem that Azure Storage Discovery is solving.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Data management is at the forefront of a lot of our customers' thoughts because it is very important to optimize costs. It's very important to stay compliant with security best practices, to make sure your resource configuration is uniformly applied, to make sure you understand what data you have in which storage resources. And so it's incredibly important to have a good handle at your data estate and get insights that are prepared for easy consumption, integrated with Copilot. So there is a whole host of cool and innovative ideas that Storage Discovery brings to the table. And I'm excited to talk to you about it today.
So you were primarily on the team that was responsible for bringing this particular capability to market, correct?
That's right. Yes. I was one of a couple of that worked together to make that happen, of course.
Was there any particular thing that you felt was like really, really important when back before this became a real capability? Some of the conversations that were going on behind the scenes around why this was a much needed capability.
There is a lot of interesting information available about storage resources, about the metrics that they produce. And we have Azure Monitor, we have several other solutions, right, that are very focused at sort of day-to-day observability. But when we look at this landscape, there is a need to process multiple of these signals. Storage Discovery even has access to a few signals you can't find anywhere else. And this processing basically means multiple signals need to be put together, need to be pre-aggregated, if you will, in order to produce useful insights. So far, you have, of course, there's a metric of showing you how many transactions a storage account has. But once you scale that up to 400,000 storage accounts, right? How are you going to find out where your hotspots are? How do you find out if these storage accounts are in the right tier? How do you find out if you need to take action across your fleet? And so there is multiple different signals that you can combine. And so far, there wasn't really a solution out there that helped Azure customers do this, right? You could build some of this yourself, and that is a rather difficult thing to do and also to maintain. So we thought that with Storage Discovery, we wanted to really have these insights at the top of your availability list, right? So that you really have something that you can go to that is very easy to understand, that's very easy to consume. And you don't really have to deploy infrastructure to do it. You don't really have to worry about the impact that a solution might have on the performance of your storage resources. So we really wanted to make this an insights first product. And that's what we've set out to do. And that's what we've done.
You mentioned signals, right? And so in the current environment of just managing and being able to have that visibility and that scale, especially when you're dealing with thousands, right? Or maybe even tens of thousands of resources, especially let's say storage resources. You have all different types of things connecting in. You have virtual machines, databases. I mean, everything literally needs storage today. Is there one particular thing that jumps out? So you mentioned the signals. And so is there one particular signal that was called out more than another signal when it comes to a large scale deployment?
I think there is a lot of signals or metrics, if you will, that are important to keep an eye on when you're managing a data estate. One thing that always jumps at the top of our list in customer discussions is cost optimization. And very good example here is, for instance, to say we have storage resources, let's say storage accounts with very few transactions and very hot tiered storage in them, right? And so what Storage Discovery allows you to do is to hone in on which storage accounts in which regions they are. It allows you to see how much storage do I have in what storage tier in that storage account or in that set of storage accounts. And I'll then be able to take corrective actions. Let's say with storage actions, I could start to apply different tasks to these storage accounts to tier them down to a cooler tier. And in some cases, honestly, we've seen the inverse as well, because the cost optimization doesn't just mean cooling down storage. It also sometimes means heating it up, because storage that is in a cooler tier is cheaper to store, but it's more expensive to use. So if you identify the inverse, right, where you have very cool storage, but you have a lot of transactions against it, then it's more cost efficient to bring that up into a higher tier. So there is all these kinds of considerations that customers have to make. This is just one cost optimization example. There are many others. And so it's important to have a product around that makes access to this information at the fleet level, right? A lot of this information you can get if you review every single storage account one by one. But how do you do that at the fleet level? How do you even know where to double click? And this is this overview level that allows you to do that very easily.
And where exactly is Storage Discovery for those for that are listening right now? How do they access it? Is it something extra? Is it built in? What should they expect, and how can they get access to it?
Yeah, it's a really important point. So Storage Discovery is a separate service. You can basically deploy what we call a Storage Discovery workspace. You can find Storage Discovery in the Azure Marketplace. So just search for Storage Discovery. When you log into the Azure portal, just search for Storage Discovery, and you'll find it there. You can also find it in the Storage Center. That's has a place in there as well. You can deploy right from there. And when you deploy a workspace, you're basically saying, what portion of my data estate do I want to observe? What subscriptions are important? You can even separate them into workloads or business units. We have scopes in a workspace that really allow you to sort of say, I want to bundle a certain set of resources that have certain, let's say, ARM resource tags or something associated with them that have a meaning together. So one scope might watch over a couple of different departments. One scope might watch over a specific workload. You can really freely define what you're liking to look over, and you can very easily apply those scopes across the Storage Discovery reports. So that's a really easy one. Another interesting way of accessing Storage Discovery is through the Azure Copilot. And I think that's a really important capability I want to highlight as well.
Accessing it through Copilot will give them what capability?
So we've actually done a really good piece of innovation for the Azure Copilot and for our customers here, which is we basically, when I mentioned earlier, we want to put insights first and insights at the fingertips of our customers. We don't want you to have to learn a schema of how insights or raw data is stored in order to compile these insights. We want to make it really easy. So you can access your insights through the Azure portal with pre-built reports, and you can access it through the Azure Copilot. And you can basically simply start asking questions about your data estate. And then when you have a Discovery workspace deployed, all you have to do is you have to select it, or you already have this workspace open and you engage Copilot at that point, and you don't even have to select the workspace. And you will be able to ask questions, combine insights or signals that maybe you haven't found in the pre-built reports, or maybe they're important to you right now, then and there. And you can see what information you can get out of your discovery deployment by simply asking deep questions to the Azure Copilot. And the way we've done it is really interesting. We're storing the data for you, so there's no storage to deploy, no databases to deploy or anything, right? Storage Discovery is a fully managed solution. You just deploy basically your configuration, your workspace, and that's how you access the data, and that's how you define what portion of your data estate do you want to monitor and or observe. And so from that perspective, you can simply ask a question to Copilot, and that question is then compiled. We basically take this natural language prompt, if you will, and we're converting it into what the schema of our database is to fetch the information. And then that data goes back to the Azure Copilot. And the Azure Copilot looks at this and says, oh, you've asked for a pie chart, or you've asked for a table, or you've asked for something else, right? And then it takes this data that comes back and then renders it for you in the way that you've requested. And I think that's a really easy to use, very powerful way of accessing data and insights, recombining them in ways that wasn't or isn't available anywhere else. That's really like something innovative, something new that, I mean, we all come to expect a lot of AI and a lot of Copilot, right? And so
Yeah.
in that regard, we wanted to really up our game and really make it easy to access those insights.
And one final question for you. So what was life like for someone with managing, Azure Storage before Storage Discovery? And what's life like now that, let's say, you've acquired Storage Discovery?
That's a good question. So our customers did a lot of different things, or currently still do, which is they tried to get the signals from wherever they can get it. And there are multiple different sources. So there is Azure Monitor, there is individual storage account properties or storage resource properties. So it's both control plane and data plane. And they have to find a way to get those signals into dashboards that they build themselves. So it's basically a very manual task to say, I can get this bit of information from over here. This is how I have to access that specifically. And then I want to combine it with that bit of information over there. What is a common key? How can I make sure that this is correct, right? So there is a lot of data science tasks and a lot of coding tasks, and then a lot of visualization considerations of how do I build now, if I have my data model, how do I build a dashboard that my users can understand, right? And so there is a lot of manual work and a lot of upkeep that's involved in that. And so from this angle, we basically now have magnitude of simplification, right? You simply log onto the Azure portal with your coffee in the morning. You go to your Discovery workspace and you have your reports there. You have capacity reports that break it down with trends. Even when you deploy Discovery, you get instant 15-day history. So before you deployed the workspace, you see the history of the past 15 days. And you get to keep history for 18 months. So if you come back, you can always look back. How was this last year around this time? Did I see a spike? You can start using it for predictions. You can sort of just sit down, browse through the insights, look at the points where you say, well, my data estate is always running a little bit hot, or it's always running into XYZ problem around Thanksgiving time when there is a busy season for my business. And so it's a interesting way of cutting out the noise, cutting out the manual labor, and really focusing on what you're here to do, manage your data estate. And so having this sort of insights first approach means you can cut out all of this noise and all of this manual work and really focus on what matters to you.
Okay. Well, Fabian, this was great. And so I am sure that the audience has learned that the manual efforts are they're not fun. right? So using and leveraging something like Azure Storage Discovery is definitely it's going to save you funds, it give you more efficiency, give you some signals that you can actually tap into. And then you just have that knowledge around how to resolve some of those issues, especially at scale. One more thing, Fabian, before I let you go. Is there a blog post or any documentation, anything that you would like to mention as far as the audience being able to go out and take a look at?
Yeah, there absolutely is. Storage Discovery very, very recently became generally available. So we're
Okay.
fully open for business, and it's a fully GA service. And we have a great blog post that details the use cases that we see have a lot of that reverberate a lot with our customers, and we have it's almost a mini tutorial of how to use Copilot. So there are really cool prompts that you can see and responses that you can see, and how customers sort of build on that, and then ask Copilot a different capability of Copilot. Right? They ask the discovery portion of Copilot for insights, and then they ask a different capability of Copilot to create them a script that acts on something at scale, right? Or send them to Storage Discovery to create a task. So there is a whole bunch of interesting scenarios and ideas that may help you really get the full benefit out of having all these insights now suddenly at your fingertips.
Thank you again, Fabian, for being a guest here. And everyone, until the next episode of Azure Storage Talk, we will see you the next week. All right. Thanks, Fabian.